and we've got a representative lobby. Obviously, I think MPs, there's a number of MPs here. You know, we have a good record of coming into this building and putting our case, sometimes in very, very large numbers. And many of you will remember holding other fire ministers to account when they attacked our pensions and looking it down in the chamber at them. And I think that's part of what we're here to do. These people get elected into MPs positions, and in many ways it becomes a cosy little world in here, and your job is to bring the real world into the House of Commons and tell people what is really going on out there in terms of what's happening to our fire and service. Not the niceties that ministers or civil servants trot out, but what's actually really going on. So we can do that, Karen can do that, but actually there's nothing better than you saying in reality what those statistics mean on the ground in your local fire and rescue services. So that's, I think, the key to why we've got this representative lobby here today. And it's been mentioned a couple of times, Grenfell. And I think if you, we're not here to discuss Grenfell in detail, but it is the background to any discussion about the fire service. And it goes, I think the key thing is this, that for more than a decade, 15 years or so, there has been utter complacency about fire and the risk of fire and other emergencies in this building, in the civil service, among ministers and so on. And the end of that is what happened at Grenfell, because the mantra was that fires are down, there is a declining risk of fire. I've sat in public meetings where local councillors have said, the truth is we don't have fires in these sorts, and a council estate, we don't have fires in these sorts of buildings anymore. And then of course something comes along like that. So there is complacency. I was just reading Fire magazine this week, which I'm sure most of you read. And although the issue is slightly different, the issue is about a Home Office initiative about equality and diversity, which we would welcome. But the Fire Minister, again, was trotting out the mantra that actually the fire service is completely changed because the risk of fire is lower than what it was in the past. They're living in a completely artificial world, and and the truth is, no matter how many fires you have, to tackle a fire, you need adequate resources, and you need people who are properly trained, properly resourced, even if fires undoubtedly have declined. But that complacency goes to the heart of what is the problem facing our fire and rescue service. So I think we need to really hammer home to the MPs you see today that challenge to that complacency. We have seen our service fragmented. So again, if you take the debate about Grenfell and the standards, and I'm very welcome to hear Karen talking about standards, because actually standards are what protects the community in terms of an expectation of what sort of fire service they can get, whether that's preventing fires from happening, whether that's inspecting buildings to make sure that people can get out in the event of fires, whether that's tackling other risks of other types of emergencies, or whether it is actually responding to 999 calls in all the variety that we know exist. So the question of standards and how we do that, and we know, and you know better than me because you're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, the fragmentation that we have across the UK in terms of intervention, protection and prevention. All the different aspects of what we do as a fire service are completely fragmented. And again, to return to Grenfell, we just have to imagine what would have happened had Grenfell Tower happened in any other part of the UK. The truth is the disaster would have been far, far worse than probably what we have of the best resourced fire service, despite its cuts in the capital city. So standards, I think, are key to that. You've got the figures in front of you, the scale of job losses, but I think it's worth bringing home to your MPs when you see them what that actually means in each fire service that you're here representing. Or the fact that we've just won a big legal case on some of the duty systems to get around the cuts, the duty systems that are being introduced, that have been introduced, that actually we've now proved are illegal. They're bringing in Victorian duty systems in order to force through the cuts, and we have to go to court to force them back on those impositions. We've had a long debate, and we've been criticised, I have to say, not I can, but by people in both parties when they've been in government about our stance being seen as an obstacle to change in the fire service. I completely reject that. Actually, if you look historically, the Fire Brigades Union has played a key role in genuinely modernising the fire service, in arguing for standards, in arguing for new roles, in arguing for inspections of workplaces and other premises. We've had a long debate, for example, about co-responding, and we've been clobbered by ministers year after year over supposedly obstructing issues like co-responding. We've now, as you know, been engaged in a long-running debate with our employers about what the fire service could be doing. We've got some first-class evidence about how the fire service could improve public safety even more than we do currently. But we've also said to ministers in all parts of the UK, including here, actually, you do that, you can't do it on the cheap, and you need to invest. You need to invest in equipment, you need to invest in standards, you need to invest in training, and actually, yeah, we're not going to apologise for it, you need to invest in pay as well, particularly after a decade of falling real wages. And really, the ball's in their court. You've seen the Executive Council's decision on what we think those sort of figures should be in terms of pay, and yet those are substantial pay increases that we think need to be brought about. But actually, that's about properly investing in a first-class public service, a service that used to be looked to from around the world, and sadly, I think, no longer is looked to across the world as a world-leading fire service. So, we aren't scared as a union of discussing what the fire service does now, what it could do in the future. We've, as I say, led the way in those discussions on that. But I think it finishes, I'll finish on this point. It's a point that Karen, I think, very usefully touched on. The question of need versus demand. We've had, getting on for 15 years of trying to run the fire service as though it was a supermarket, as though it's all about supply and demand. And we've seen this, you've lived through it, where we were told fires don't happen at night. Well, Grenfell Tower happened at night. So if you simply plan on when statistically things might happen, actually you will plan incorrectly and you will plan in dangerous ways. We want a service that is based on the risk that people face and planning adequately for that risk. And the best people to know about that are the people who deliver it on the front line. So I think that's a debate that we need to take into the government and into the people you see. But as I say, just to finish, I think the strongest message you can give today is the examples from your own fire and rescue services of what those cuts really mean. When they vote for a budget that cuts central funding to the fire service, actually it has impacts down the line in every single fire service in the UK. And that's what you're here to explain to them today. So, you know, this is, we've not been here for a while, but certainly we'll be back again in the new year. So thanks everyone for coming. Let's get out and put the case strongly to MPs joining us.